everyone, this is Ben with another episode of Bathroom Brews. Today, we're going to take a look at a new Phyrexia All-Be-One commander, Othari Sun's Glory. This gorgeous bird, well, phoenix technically, potato, is a 5-mana 3/3 with flying, lifelink, and haste, and says, whenever it attacks, you get an experience counter. Yay, experience is back. Then create a 2/2 red rebel creature token that's tapped and attacking for each experience counter you have. But wait, there's even more text. You can pay 2, a red and a white, and tap an untapped rebel you control to return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. This ability doesn't have a timing restriction, so you can in fact do this at instant speed. It won't get you a block or anything, but waiting until your opponent's end step will let you untap with the pretty bird, Phoenix. So there are a couple of ways you can go about building this deck, and make sure to watch until the end for a quick bonus section. One option is building a Voltron deck with this commander. It has evasion and haste, so suiting it up with cards like Shadow Spear, Sword of Feast and Famine, or Sword of Fire and Ice, and using Pure Steel Paladin or Sigarda's 8 to cheat the equipment cost seems like a no-brainer. You could also build an extra combat deck, since this commander cares about attack triggers, using cards like Morag Fury of Akum, Karlach Fury of Avernus, or Aggravated Assault. I, however, being the hipster that I am, built Rebel Tribal with Zirda the Dawnwaker as the companion. Zirda reduces the cost of activated abilities by 2 generic mana, but can only reduce the cost to 1 mana, and it won't reduce the cost of mana abilities, so your commander's ability will only cost 1 and a white. Zirda's stipulation is every permanent in your starting library must have an activated ability. Thankfully, most commander legal rebels have activated abilities, and there are some great changelings, like Mirror Entity, which also have activated abilities. Equipment will almost always have an equip cost, which is an activated ability. The most recent Kamigawa set released equipment creatures, which I definitely decided to include here. Komani Battle Armor, which will go to all creature target players control when our commander deals combat damage. Lizard Blade will give our commander double strike, and of course the white Scavenging Ooze, Lion Sash, which lets us pay 1 white mana to exile target card from our graveyard. If it was a permanent card, you put a +1/+1 counter on Lion Sash. For each counter on Lion Sash, the equipped creature gets +1/+1. For normal equipment, I included Helm of the Host to give us extra copies of our commander which we can swing in with at the beginning of combat, Sword of the Animist to let us ramp, and Sword of Truth and Justice, which says whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, then proliferate. Speaking of proliferation, at the time of recording, there aren't a ton of ways to proliferate in Boros colors. But I can include cards like Contagion Clasp, which will put a -1/-1 counter on target creature when it enters the battlefield, and you can pay 4 and tap it to proliferate. We also have Contagion Engine, which will put a -1/-1 counter on all creatures target player controls, and for 4 mana will let you proliferate twice. Of course, what would a Rebel deck be without, well, Rebels? We have the recently reprinted in a secret layer, Linsivvy Defiant Hero, a 3-mana 1/3 that you can pay X and tap her to search your library for a Rebel permanent card with mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. And for 3 mana, put target Rebel card from your graveyard onto the bottom of your library. She's one of the best Rebels in our deck, and with Zirda out, we can tap her to get our 2-mana Rebel from our deck for free. And she also combos nicely with Maskwood Nexus, which will make all creatures we own and control into every creature type. So with this 2-card quote-unquote combo, we can tutor up any creature from our library onto the battlefield. Other great Rebels are Ramosian Revivalist, which lets us put a Rebel with mana value 5 or less from our graveyard into play, or Lawbringer that we can sacrifice to exile target red creature. Then using Revivalist, we can return it to the battlefield. Oh, and Lightbringer exiles target black creature. And with Maskwood Nexus out, we can reanimate some of our non-rebels like Burnished Heart or Cathar Commando. If you liked the video so far, make sure to smash that like button, it really helps out the channel. Since we are playing a pretty niche tribal deck, and there isn't a lot of generic tribal support that we can include, such as Vanquisher's Banner or Molten Echoes due to Zirda, I wanted to include some anthems to buff our board. However, we have to make sure those anthems have activated abilities. Spear of Heliod will give all our creatures +1/+1, and we can pay 3 to tap it to destroy target creature that dealt damage to us this turn. Or the new In the Trenches, which gives our creatures +1/+1, and we can pay 6 to exile target non-land permanent until In the Trenches leaves the battlefield. And finally, Paladin Clasp, which will tax our opponents during our turn, and once we get to level 2, also buffs all our creatures. Card draw was another tricky thing. I could just jam a bunch of wheels, but a lot of white card draw tends to be on creatures such as Welcoming Vampire, which with our companion, we can't really play. So I leaned into repeatable artifact draw. Idol of Oblivion lets us tap it to draw a card, so long as we created a token this turn. Endless Atlas, we can pay 2 and tap it to draw a card if we control 3 or more lands with the same name. I also included Magus of the Wheel, as suggested by the name, will let us draw a fresh 7. And Dawn of Hope, which will let us pay 2 whenever we gain a life to draw a card. Quick rules note, Zirda will not reduce the cost of the card draw because it's a triggered ability and not activated, but will reduce the cost to make the tokens. Also, Rune Grinder, which when it dies, everyone may wheel, and has Mountain Cycling. Unrelated, why is Mountain Cycling one word? Let me know if you know why in the comment section below. Oh, and of course I had to add the White Rec Sage, Lauren of the Third Path, which destroys up to one target artifact or enchantment. And coincidentally, we can tap her to have you and target opponent each draw a card. Now that covers the core of the deck. If you want to check out the full list, I'll have a link in the video description below. Now for the bonus section. Now keep in mind, this is a very rough idea, and I haven't even started brewing it yet. So if you want to see this deck, let me know in the comment section below. The idea is to use Rocco Cabaretti Caterer as the face commander, while keeping Othari as the hidden commander. We get access to green, which means we get a lot more proliferation effects, like Evolution Sage, along with cards like Doubling Season and Vorinclex Monstrous Raider to help get even more experience counters. Then we also get access to cards like Parallel Lives, Primal Vigor, and Anointed Procession to double the amount of tokens we can produce with Othari's ability. The reason for Rocco is because they can tutor Othari right from the library onto the battlefield, making the hidden commander aspect of the deck a lot less of a drawback. And with that, thanks for watching. Special shout out to my patrons on screen here. If you'd like to join them in supporting the channel, I'll have a link in the video description below. Special thanks to Garrick Morgan for creating my intro music. You can find all of his socials in the video description below as well. For more MTG content, make sure to subscribe and check out one of my videos linked here on screen. And as always, this has been Ben with BathroomBrewsMTG, and remember, always wash your hands.